In October 2018, we discovered that my father had an acute calcification of one of his heart valves, requiring immediate surgery. The surgery was further complicated with a triple bypass and the requirement of an artificial pacemaker post-surgery. In 2 months, we discovered that a hospital-borne staph infection had made its way to the site of the artificial implant, and essentially the entire surgery would need to be redone. He never came back from that second surgery. My father's energy was equivalent to that of his namesake, the sun. Honestly, we all thought he would outlive us all. I was his primary caregiver, and what this ordeal left me with was two things. One, the discovery that I too have a genetic predisposition to get what he got. And two, a nihilistic view of life. I started questioning its meaning. Today, with the death and despair all around us, losing our near and dear ones, I think many of us are in this position. And so I want to share my story. In my quest for the meaning of life, I read concepts of a past life, an afterlife, being born again as a human, maybe as a cockroach, becoming a spirit, good, bad. But how does any of this matter? The ancient text, Yoga Vasishtha, talks about the concept of the world or life itself being Maya or an illusion, a dream. The Buddha once recounted a story to his disciples where he talked about how once when he was meditating in a grove, a rampaging elephant came upon the scene. The Buddha's reaction was to get up and run. One of his disciples asked him, "If everything is a Maya and not real, why did you run?" To this, the Buddha said, "The dream version of me ran." And so, forgetting about everything else, whether I could have been or I will be, all I'm aware of is this life that I've been given, this space between two breaths, the consciousness of here and now. And if that's the case, how do I live? And I borrow from the concept, the Japanese concept of ichigo ichibe, maximizing every moment because each moment is unique, never to come again. And so I found my big audacious goal, to be happy. Unsurprisingly, I wasn't the only one. Rising number of cases around the world of depression and its allies show how many people are unhappy. The country I live in, India, has a majority youth population. And interestingly, today, more and more young people are being diagnosed with depression and its allies. Take the USA, for example. 4.6% of the world's population, 24% of global economy. The USA consumes 80% of global opioids. Clearly, there's a need to pursue happiness. And so I started with the usual suspects. First, money. Money seems to buy anything and everything. Maybe it could get me happiness. But then I read a research by two Nobel laureates where they discovered that after a certain wage, the feeling of happiness or well-being plateaus. A recent study revised that number to $100,000 per annum. I haven't reached that number, but the fact that the ability for money to give happiness is capped clearly tells me that money is not the source for long-lasting happiness. Next, a partner. Well, if rom-coms are to be believed, happily ever after is a reality, could be a reality. And so I thought, okay, maybe it's a partner I'm looking for. But then theoretically, if I'm unhappy and I'm looking for someone else as the source of my happiness, and considering so many people around me are unhappy, and if the other person is also looking for the same thing, then who's giving in this relationship? Rising divorce rates and breakups back me up on this. So clearly, this is not the answer. Next, instant gratification. Well, tried and tested. Eating something nice does give me happiness. Watching a nice movie, going for long drives. But then I realized that instantly gratifying though they may be, they're also short-lived. If a friend gives me a cupcake, I'll be very happy and I will eat it. But then if I find out that my roomie has been given an entire cake, where does my happiness bubble go? Short-lived. Fame or power. Well, I've been to a lot of talks, panels, been quoted in several places. So maybe a few hundred people know I exist. If fame is subjective, and if this qualifies to being famous, then I should be happy, but I'm not. And if fame gave happiness, how come so many celebrities are battling mental health issues? And judging by the tweets of people with political power, clearly, happy is not the adjective I would use to describe them. Vacations? Well, every time I come back from a beach trip to Goa or from the foothills of the Himalayas in Himachal Pradesh, I am Zen personified. But then something happens at work, or my co-founder messes up, and my Zen state goes down the drain. I realized that all of these were actually pathways to pleasure, finite, short-lived, and not the definition of happiness that I was looking for. And so I searched more, and I came upon this concept, eudaimonia. Apparently, a concept that gave Aristotle several hours of rumination. The closest understanding that I got of it is a sense of fulfillment or contentment. And so I realized that this is the version of happiness that I'm looking for. And so my new bag became eudaimonia. So I went back to the drawing board. If life is a created reality, and let's add tech to it, if life is a video game, and assuming that I have been born with X number of avatars, subtracting the number of known, unknown, near-death experiences that I've had, assuming that I have one life left, what do I do to maximize that one life? Well, for starters, my health. And so I found myself my starting point. I had to start with me, my being, my health. The WHO defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease. And so I went back to my happiness list and redefined it with fresh perspective, looking now for abundance, love, hedonistic experiences, increase in aura or energy, nature therapy. I came upon this chart where most of these seem to be, again, pathways to pleasure. But the serotonin quadrant caught my eye. There seemed to be something here. And thus began my mission for optimal health for happiness. The first thing I did was naturopathy. It's a place I went to where they use natural means of therapy to help the body heal itself. This involves a lot of lifestyle changes, including sleep quality and timings. I lost a ton of weight and came back with this gray exoskeleton off of me. Next was to relook at my consumption. And when I say consumption, I'm not just talking about food, but also what is consumed by the other sense organs, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing. They say that the 5 people in your life are who you are. And in today's day and age, it's not just the people you hang out with. It could be influencers you're following, subscribing to, reading. And so I started relooking at what I was consuming, what was going inside me, and not just food. Next was connecting with people. I decided to do this without agenda, going to networking events without selling my work, going on dates without expectations, and honestly, being able to remove outcome from interactions was so liberating. Next for me was locomotion. Well, I've been born with motor reflexes and motor ability, and I'm blessed to have that. And so I decided to use it to get some movement in the body, to get the system optimally flowing, to get the juices flowing. And this could be yoga, it could be exercise, dancing, walking, anything that gets the body moving. Next was meditation. Now, when I started doing meditation in the typical lotus posture or Padmasana, concentrating on the light of God was not easy. And I realized that's not how I would be able to start meditating. But I discovered other ways of meditating. For me, art, for example, is very meditative. Plug. This is something I recently did. I also dabble occasionally in Photochitra, which is a Kalika style of painting that originated in Bengal. And journaling, writing poetry is also very meditative for me. It could also be cooking, dancing, a sport. I realized that anything which helped me just be with myself and forget about the external world was meditative. I discovered yoga nidra tapes online, which are essentially ways of being able to get yogic sleep. It's extremely rejuvenating, and I swear by it now. Next for me was nature therapy. And this involved being around trees, looking at the sky. There's a study which talks about how sky gazing for 15 minutes helps you completely de stress. And that worked. Next was work, fulfilling, satisfying work. And so, apart from what I was doing with my company, I started mentoring students, aspiring entrepreneurs. I explored the concept of consulting with an NGO, anything that helped me feel satisfied with what I was doing, professionally satisfied. And last but not the least, instant gratification. So an occasional cupcake, another episode of The Crown, stolen kiss, some life experiences are just meant to be fun. And so in summary, with the vision of eudaimonia and the goal of Ichigo Ichi-A, I started out on the mission of optimal health, tasked with finding physical, mental, social, emotional well-being, focusing on nurturing, nourishing, and strengthening each of these. There's an Indian poet called Kabir who wrote fantastic couplets in his time. One of them talks about a musk deer which searches the forest for an intoxicating smell that it doesn't know is emanating from its own self, just as Ram or God is omnipresent and the world doesn't know. Maybe in my journey on this pale blue dot, I will discover the truth of Tat Tvam Asi, Sanskrit for you are what you seek. So what is it that you are pursuing? What is your big audacious goal? And would you consider starting with you? Thank you.